Together, emotion and motivation make things happen. That is, they cause behaviors. We have already covered emotion in previous lectures. This lecture will focus on motivation. Theories of motivation seek to explain questions such as, where do needs come from? And how does motivation lead to behaviors? We can then use these general theories to ask questions about motivation and behavior in specific domains, such as eating and sex. Psychologists define motivation as factors that energize, direct, or sustain behavior. I want you to think about your motivation or motivations for taking this class. There could be many reasons for you to be here. For example, you could be taking this class because you want to prepare for a career, or a desire to learn more about yourself, or to learn about how other people think, or because your parents expect you to be in school, or because it's a requirement for your major and minor. In fact, you could have many different reasons for being in this class. As we'll come to see, there are many factors that can motivate us. One factor we have discussed in previous lectures is emotion. We often seek out situations that are likely to influence our emotions in one way or another. For example, if we want to improve our mood, we seek out friends who have a positive outcome on us. Or we go to a funny movie, or we walk in the sunshine. Some of our behaviors are motivated by needs. A need is a state of dependency. This dependency could be biological, such as the need for air and food, or social, for example, the need for self-esteem or social acceptance. Failure to meet a need can lead to physiological or psychological issues. In the 1940s, Abraham Maslow developed a theory about needs. This theory has been very influential within education and business, being adopted by many motivational speakers. Here is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Needs that are more foundational are found at the bottom. These are survival or basic needs, such as food, water, air, and sleep. Maslow believed that needs lower on the pyramid had to be satisfied first, before the higher order needs could be addressed. For example, without adequate food, people will not be motivated as strongly to seek out needs higher up. For example, safety or acceptance. After the physiological needs are the safety needs, which are met when an individual feels physically and emotionally safe in their environment. Next are the social and emotional needs, for example, the needs for friends and love. Next are esteem needs, that is, the feelings of importance that we matter. We want to feel good about ourselves. These needs include self-respect, achievement, and recognition. The top of the pyramid is self-actualization, which is when someone is living up to their personal hopes and dreams. Maslow believed this person was truly happy and satisfied individual. This person is one that has reached his or her potential. These needs include truth, justice, wisdom, morality, and lack of prejudice. This theory assumes that people are motivated to continually try to improve ourselves and our situations. This is an example of humanistic psychology, which views humans as striving for fulfillment. So why are we motivated to meet our needs? The reason is that a lack of need leads to a drive. A drive is a psychological state that causes arousal, that then motivates us to seek out the need. Try holding your breath for as long as you can. What do you feel? You start to feel anxious, maybe a sense of urgency, a pressure or burning in your chest. Eventually, you will breathe. The psychological and physiological arousal you felt was the drive, which in turn motivates you to meet your need for air by breathing. Many of our biological needs are motivated by trying to maintain homeostasis. That is, the tendency to maintain equilibrium. A good way to think about homeostasis is like a thermometer in your home. If it gets too hot, you'll turn down the thermostat. If it is too cold, you turn it back up. That is, there is a comfortable temperature for you to try to maintain. Our bodies also have a thermostat setting that is most efficient, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. When we're too hot, our body sweats, and when we're too cold, we shiver. We're also motivated to perform behaviors to alleviate this state, seeking shade or taking off clothing if too hot, or putting on more clothes and seeking shelter if cold. Through learning, we can find ways to deal consistently with drives. If we perform a specific behavior over and over, it can become habitual. For example, we can find that eating a hamburger deals with hunger. In turn, we could eventually have a habit of seeking out and eating hamburgers when we're hungry. In addition to drives, which are internal, we're also motivated by incentives, which are external objects or goals. For example, a paycheck is an incentive for working at a job. Other examples are esteem and grades. Often we are consciously aware of incentives, but even those we are not aware of can motivate behavior. For example, when the subliminal cue, exert, is included in a set of words such as happy, friend, good, people exert more pressure on a lever than when the subliminal word exert is absent. So a real-world application of this is the fact that advertising often fades into the background, outside of our awareness. However, that advertising can still influence our behaviors. So maybe it's more likely we seek out food that is advertised consistently when we're hungry. Research has demonstrated that children eat significantly more snack food when exposed to advertising. In fact, 45% more. Because drives are arousal and they motivate behavior, you might start to think that the more arousal, the better the performance. The Yerkes-Dodson law dictates that up to an optimal point, more arousal does, in fact, lead to better performance. However, after that optimal point, additional arousal actually decreases performance. The Yerkes-Dodson law is illustrated by an inverted U-shaped curve. For example, think about taking an exam. You don't want to be totally unaroused because this could lead to a lack of attention. However, too much anxiety will be distracting. In fact, some students suffer from test anxiety, which is over-arousal during test taking, which is correlated with decreased performance. This is also true with athletic performance, where you might think that more arousal should always be better. However, you can often see athletes, like figure skaters, making errors when they are overly pumped up and stressed out. Pleasure is a big motivator of behavior, in that we are much more likely to perform behaviors that bring us pleasure. Sigmund Freud hypothesized that behaviors are satisfied according to the pleasure principle, which drives people to seek out pleasure and avoid pain. This principle aligns with evolutionary theory, which proposed that behaviors that are associated with pleasure are often ones that promote survival, such as pleasure from sexual behavior and eating, which we will talk about in the lectures, The Motivations of Sex and Eating. Evolutionary theory also proposes that behaviors that involve pain are often detrimental to survival and reproduction. Some animals, including humans, prefer sweets to other flavors, and dislike sour, and especially dislike bitter flavors. Even babies demonstrate this preference. As we can see from these photos, when the baby is eating sweets, it is happy. When it's exposed to the sour flavor, the baby is puckering and a little upset. However, when exposed to the bitter flavor, the baby is highly upset. Why would evolutionary theory say this is? One reason is that sweet foods tend to be relatively safe, while most harmful substances, like toxins and poisons, taste bitter. Thus, having the inclination to pursue sweets and avoid bitter foods would have conferred survival benefits and been adaptive. The motivations we've talked about so far have tended to be extrinsically motivated. That is, done for some external goal, reward, or reduction of a drive. Some behaviors are their own reward. That is, we're intrinsically motivated to do them. These behaviors serve no other purpose other than that we enjoy them. Play is an example of an intrinsically motivated behavior. Think back to when you were a child. Did you have a favorite toy? Was there an external reward for playing with that toy? Probably not, though you probably spent hours playing with it. You did this from mere enjoyment of it. While some activities can be solely driven by either intrinsic or extrinsic motivations, most behaviors are a combination of the two. Our expectations of whether we will be successful or not can also influence our motivation to engage in a task. For example, if you believe you will do well in math, you may be motivated to study hard and take more math-based courses, perhaps pursuing a degree in math or science. However, if you feel you are not as good at math, you may avoid math classes, pursuing other degrees. Albert Bandura calls these expectations of how well or poorly we will do self-efficacy. People high in self-efficacy will set higher goals for themselves and pursue those goals even in the face of setbacks, the combination of which often leads to success. However, setting too high of a goal can also have negative repercussions if they're overwhelming. So it's best to set challenging but attainable goals. Another personal factor related to how people set and pursue goals is achievement motivation. People vary on the need for achievement. Those with high need for achievement will pursue more challenging goals and perform behaviors that predict success. They are also more accurate in their goal setting and aspirations. Self-regulation of our behavior is also very important for success. Think of the following situation. You're planning to take the weekend to prepare for a test on Monday. However, all of your friends are planning to go to the beach that same weekend. What do? Going to the beach seems much more immediately enjoyable to me. However, the rewards for studying may be longer lasting, in that a good grade on the exam could mean a better grade in class, which could increase your GPA, which might help you to pursue your long-term goals, perhaps medical school, law school, or graduate school. Being able to put off immediate enjoyment for longer-term goals is a fundamental attribute of self-regulation known as delayed gratification. Psychologist Walter Mischel did a classic study on delayed gratification known as the marshmallow test. In this study, children were given the option of eating a marshmallow immediately or waiting and getting 2 marshmallows. Children who delayed their gratification longer, that is, they demonstrated greater self-regulation, were found in follow-ups as adults to be healthier, have better school performance, higher scores on standardized tests, and less drug addiction and other criminal activities. Think about why this could be. Our life is a series of situations where the immediate, enjoyable option is not always the best. For example, do I eat the cake now or stick to my diet? Add up enough situations like this, and it's easy to see how people better at delayed gratification end up having less instances of obesity. I've posted a couple of interesting videos on the marshmallow test and self-regulation. As social animals, humans are highly motivated by the need to belong. Humans who are socially isolated from others do not fare well. We're more likely to get sick and die prematurely. Other great apes also become extremely depressed when isolated. Belonging to groups is fundamental to us. Thus, joining and maintaining social groups is very important to us. In fact, it is theorized to be a fundamental motivator of behavior that evolved in us. That is, it is rooted in our genetics. So just as we're driven by thirst to drink, the need to belong drives us to seek out other people. Stanley Schachter examined this need to belong in a classic study that manipulated people's anxiety and then gave them the opportunity to either wait alone or to wait around other people. Participants were shown a large machine and told it was a shock generator, and that they would all be receiving shocks. Half were told that the shocks would be quite painful, while the other half were told it would be relatively painless. All of the participants were then given the option of where to wait while the technicians set up the equipment. They could wait alone or with others. What do you think they found? If you were anxious, what would you choose? Did you say you would wait with others when anxious? That is what the researchers found. Significantly more participants who were told that shocks would be painful waited together. As you can see from this graph, almost twice as many did so than those who were told that the shocks would be painless. Have you ever heard the saying, "Misery loves company"? Well, it seems to be true, in that people who are anxious, worried, or upset seek out other people. In fact, further studies of this effect found that when given the option, people who were anxious wanted to wait around other people who were anxious, rather than around people who were not anxious. So in this case, it seems that misery loves miserable company. So why is it that misery loves miserable company? Leon Fessinger's social comparison theory suggests that one reason that people seek out other individuals who are having a similar negative reaction is that it validates their own experience and emotions. If everyone around us was calm and peaceful, we may feel like we are behaving or experiencing the situation inappropriately if we're anxious. As thinking, feeling, social creatures, our behaviors are often motivated for many different reasons. Some we may be aware of, and others that are hidden from us. We can be driven by our biology and genetics, also by our expectations and beliefs, and by our need to belong to social groups. Why humans do what they do is one of the fundamental and fascinating questions that psychology seeks to answer. Hopefully this lecture and your readings have given you a bit of insight into your own behaviors and that of other people around you.